And that's how the book started to come about, was me
Mm.
thinking it's finally time for me to live my dream.
Hello, and welcome to episode 42 of Untamed Shrews Women Talk Theater, presented by the Flagstaff Shakespeare Festival. I'm Dawn.
And I'm Becki.
And I'm Hannah. Today, we will be joined by Julie Hammonds, our founding board president and author of a new novel, Blue Mountain Rose. But before we are joined by Julie, Shrews, what's new? I know we have only a few minutes. We have a really tight day today. But what is a one sentence check-in for each of us?
I think my check-in is just that we have the flooring in at the theater, and
Woo!
God
Yay!
bless Justice Burkett, and also our guest today's husband, Matt Anderson. Those two have been
Mm.
instrumental in getting that flooring in. So, woohoo, that's my check-in. And I'm going from this right back there
Right
to
back.
put up trim.
Yeah, we have a tight day today. Okay,
Yeah.
Becki,
Nice.
one
Okay.
sentence check-in.
Okay. There's going to be some commas. I am doing a show down with Southwest Shakespeare. With Southwest Shakespeare Company and Tier 5, their adaptation of Secret Garden with previous Flag Shakes actor director James Cougar Canfield. So very
Ooh.
excited about that. Goes up in April. I have read 10 and a half plays from the last time that I checked in. Yeah, I stuck
Whoa.
to it. It's at least one play a week. Some of the weeks have had two, but one of the weeks had half a play. So, but not my fault. There was a printing error in whatever copy I had. But you know what? I'm letting that lie. And then my one woman show that I wrote was nominated for a Viola Award. So that's coming
Yay,
up at the end of April.
congratulations. Thank you.
Amazing. So many good
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have so much to check in about, but you know what? That's just gonna have to wait till May. So Shrews, just be waiting for some juicy tidbits in May. Mostly my check-in is I literally got back yesterday, technically yesterday, because I got home at like 1 a.m. From Ireland, very early, late Saturday night, early Sunday morning. So I'm just dealing with some jet lag and trying to get back into it. But yeah, Jacob and I went to Ireland, had a blast. Today is St. Patrick's Day, so I just feel, extra festive, wearing my green, wearing my new gold shamrock earrings that I bought
Ooh.
on Grafton Street in Dublin, because yeah, so just had so much fun. I just feel very renewed and just like reinvigorated for music and life and art and travel and beautiful
Oh,
things,
good.
which is just always the best part about travel. And it was just like,
Yeah.
honestly, just rocking to be in Ireland with my husband for a week. That was just so much
Yeah.
fun. But
Yay.
tomorrow I have a concert.
Wait,
What?
and we're all eating corned beef together
Oh, yes,
tonight,
we are eating corned beef tonight.
right?
So happy. I know that this will go live after, but happy St. Patrick's Day.
Happy St. Patrick's
Because
Day.
shrews who eat corned beef together
Together, stay
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 together.
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 Other than that, let's see. I have my yearly concert that I do with FSO, the symphony, tomorrow. So like I have dress rehearsal tonight for that, which is fun. But yeah, honestly, the rest is gonna have to wait till May. Dun dun
Yeah.
dun.
What a cliffhanger.
What a cliffhanger. Alrighty. I
Okay.
know that
Okay.
was the fastest Shrews check-in ever,
Yeah.
but now we're gonna jump on over to Julie.
All right. Thanks for the check-in, Shrews. And now I am so excited to chat with Julie Hammonds, founding board president of Flag Shakes, a personal inspiration and a just absolute wizard of all things, who has now written a novel that we're so excited to talk about. Julie, welcome.
Thank you
Woo!
so much, Shrews. I
Yay.
am excited to talk with all of you.
Yay.
Yay.
Julie, will you tell the Shrews who you are and how we found you? How are you here?
How am I here? How am I here?
Yeah.
I started working with Flag Shakes the first season that it was performing. I was just helping out, just sort of, I don't know, poking around behind the scenes, doing whatever needed to be done. I had recently been stage managing at another theater, and so my theatrical skills were fresh, I guess. And Flag Shakes found a use for me. And then the next year, it was time to really get serious about Flag Shakes and form a nonprofit. And Dawn Tucker said, "Hey, Julie, a nonprofit needs a board. Do you know how to found a board?" And I said, "No, but I'll study up and figure it out." And that's
Yeah.
how I got here. I founded the board for the nonprofit.
And you did an
Yay.
amazing job. We still use all the drives, all the documents, all the articles, all the bylaws as structured and organized by our founding board president. So thank you so much
Absolutely.
for getting us off to a great start.
But
It was a pleasure.
how did you guys actually meet?
See, Julie was avoiding this because it involves my ex-husband.
Oh, we can cut it then.
I
We
don't
can cut
care. I just knew Julie was being polite, but you can absolutely leave it in.
it.
She stage managed a show that he was in, and the one and only thing
Oh,
he was
mhm.
ever right about was the fact that I needed to meet Julie Hammonds and make her part of Flag Shakes.
Well, I'm glad, I'm glad we found you.
Me
It was
too.
stage managing Much Ado About Nothing. And
Gotcha.
so that's how y'all knew that I was interested in Shakespeare specifically. I love all kinds of theater, but I'm devoted to Shakespeare in performance.
That's
Yes.
amazing.
I love that about you.
Well, after all of that, how did the book come about?
So let's see, in 2019, I founded a book publishing company. I've been a professional editor for a very long time, and it was just time to take over control of what happens to a book after it's edited. So when it goes into layout, when it goes into being printed, when it gets to be published and marketed, I wanted to learn about and do all of that. So that was in 2019. I founded a publishing company here in Flagstaff with my business partner, Miles Schrog.
Woo.
And the two of us launched this company thinking, well, it might just be one book. Who knows? But then we had so much fun putting our first book together that we just kept doing it. And through COVID, we just kept doing it. And now we have 13 published books to our credit.
Woo.
Congratulations.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Is Blue Mountain Rose number 13?
No, it's number 14.
Okay. Okay.
Is
I
it
let someone
technically-
else be number 13.
Yeah.
It's technically still, I mean, is it unpublished? I mean, obviously I know that it's been printed, but is it not quite published yet? When does it
Right.
officially become published?
The official on sale date nationally is April 23rd,
God,
2025.
oh yes, Shakespeare's birthday.
Yeah.
Cool.
Shakespeare.
That's right.
Yeah.
Not an
And Death
accident.
Day, we'll never know.
And did you
Cool,
plan
that's
that?
amazing.
Shakespeare's birthday?
Yeah.
Definitely, I did.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I planned the book. I think we had published 11 or 12 books when I finally woke up one morning and thought, you know what? I have loved writing all my life. And I have always thought that eventually I would produce a book that I was proud to see out there in the world with my name on the front cover. When am I going to get around to doing that? I am a book publisher.
Yeah.
A moment. And that was early 2023. And that's how the book started to come about, was me thinking it's finally time for me to live my dream.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
amazing. Oh, inspirational. Now, I mean, the elephant in the room. How is Blue Mountain Rose connected to Flagstaff Shakespeare Festival?
When I started thinking it's time for me to write my own book, I generated a bunch of ideas, maybe a dozen, maybe 2 dozen book ideas. And each one would come up and I would think, oh, that's a good idea. And then I would start playing with it. And then somehow maybe it would lose its energy or I would figure out what was wrong with it. But I had an old idea in the drawer from when I was first working with Flag Shakes that was set in a theater festival here in Flagstaff, our home city. And I pulled that idea out of the drawer, and that idea would not go away. Once I pulled it out of the drawer, it wanted me to play with it. And more things kept coming up, and more things kept coming up. And I realized Shakespeare theater is a world I love, and I'm going to be spending a lot of time writing a novel. It should be set in a world I love. So really the genesis of the novel came from those early days with the Flagstaff Shakespeare Festival and just really realizing how much I love Shakespeare theaters and Shakespeare festivals.
So I know you had to do a lot of research, and you did a lot of research in Utah, and I know Christine helped you a lot. And so I'm very curious because you love this world, you've been involved backstage in this world. What was the most surprising thing you discovered about the way that Shakespeare festivals run in your research for this book? What was like the most surprising thing where you were like, what? They do that or that happens?
I had very conscientiously plotted my entire novel on a huge spreadsheet, and then I had gone through and spent several months writing my first draft, just throwing the words onto the page, and things flowed and things actually fit, and nothing went terribly wrong. And I had this beautiful first draft. And then I went on a field trip to the Utah Shakespeare Festival with the Flagstaff Shakespeare Festival that was led by Hannah.
Woo!
Yay, Hannah. And I took the opportunity, as a smart novelist would, to pick Hannah's brain because she lives this world so much. And one of the things that Hannah told me during our long conversations in the car on the way to Cedar City and back was that a Shakespeare festival, they wouldn't take 8 weeks to rehearse before they open. It would be really more like 4 weeks, maybe 5 weeks. These are professional theater companies, and at that size and that scale, they are getting up and running. And I thought, oh boy, there went my timeline.
Oh,
Because I had written my entire book based on the idea that my characters had 8 full weeks between when they first started getting to know each other and rehearsing and etc. in the rehearsal
Uh-huh.
room, and
yeah.
when the thing finally opened. And when Hannah said 4 weeks, 5 weeks tops, I thought, how am I going to lose 3 weeks? 3 weeks
Yeah.
without destroying my plot. So it
Yeah.
became a
I'll
subject of great conversation between me and my family,
Yeah,
and we
I'll
called
be
it the
honest.
timeline problem.
Oh,
the
that's funny.
timeline.
I'll be honest,
That's
as a theater
hilarious.
student, that was shocking to me too. Like learning that, yeah, you don't have this luxurious rehearsal process because the companies want to get the shows up and running. Like,
I
Well, I
thought they would
think
have
it's
more time because,
Yeah.
they're a theater festival. They've got money and
yeah,
people and so much to
yeah.
coordinate, and they'd have more time. They'd have the luxury of more time. And
right.
actually, no.
Well,
Nope.
it's actually really interesting because, like, in the community theater world, you rehearse for like 3 months because you're only rehearsing like 2 to 3 times a week. These are volunteers, things like
Hmm.
that. They just like really drag out the process. But it's so funny because it's like time is money, right? So once you get to
Yeah.
the professional theater level, they're like, all right, let's go. And also, because you are paying people, you can't expect them to put obviously more time into it. So they're there 8 hours a day, 4,
Hmm.
6, 8 hours a day. So and they're memorizing at night. Like this is what they are doing. So like this
Hmm.
becomes their job, which is why it becomes shorter. But it's a really fascinating difference between like youth theater, community theater, you spend a whole summer rehearsing or whatever, and then you perform. But yeah, it's swift. I mean, it does get longer, obviously, if you're doing repertory, maybe by a week or two. But other than that, it's pretty
Yeah.
short.
I was gonna say, even our rep rehearsals run a tight 4 weeks. So we really hit the ground running. But
I've been
oh,
in
that's so
professional
funny.
shows where we rehearsed for 2 weeks or
Yeah.
less.
I know. I was gonna
So
say it's a good thing you didn't set it in a like American Shakespeare Center Ren season. Truly, you'd have 2 days for everyone to figure everything out.
Maybe that's book two, book
Yeah.
two.
The Ren season. Oh, that's
amazing.
hilarious.
Anything else
Yeah.
that surprised
Yeah.
you?
During the research process, what surprised me, I think it was good to be reminded that memorization is only part of what an actor does.
Mhm.
I, like many
Mhm.
people out there in the Muggle world,
Yeah.
thought that memorization was the biggest, hardest thing that maybe a
Mhm.
Shakespeare actor does, or and especially maybe if they're working in a rep company and they're learning 2 parts or 3 parts or 5 parts.
Mhm.
And it turns out that no, as I was reminded, a lot of the work that an actor does is learning about and understanding the character and the character in relationship to the other characters and in the setting that the director is creating. And all of that work is actually more of the actor's attention and study.
Mm.
Yeah, I've actually I think there's a good metaphor that relates to your other passion, which is running. I feel like memorization is like putting on your running shoes. And then the whole rest of the run
That's really
is the
great.
rehearsal work.
Yeah.
So it's so funny because we do often get that question in, as actors, I would say, there's kind of a joke, which is
How do
that
you memorize all those
how do you
lines?
memorize all those lines? Is the first question at every talk
Every
back. And
talk back.
yeah, and it's quite interesting because you're kind of like, well, it is like it's the shitty part, but we do it because like we
Yeah.
have to do it. And everyone has a different way that they do it. But yeah, you're very right. It's actually the first step. Like you have to do it to do the work. So
Mhm.
One
yeah,
of
very
my
That's
interesting.
fun.
one
I
of
like
my
that metaphor.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I do too. Sorry. One of my three main characters, Peter, is learning the part of Hamlet. And I very specifically gave him a little scene where he's studying his lines, but he's also reflecting on the fact that that's really only the running shoes part of his thing. I didn't know about that metaphor, or I would have stolen it.
That's cute.
Yeah.
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 Um, so I know personally that you reached out to Cadence about Hamlet
Mm.
because Cadence is a close friend of the pod. Obviously, she wrote our theme song. She's been on twice, which is rare. I think we've only ever had two people come on twice, her
Mhm.
and Raquel McKenzie. What did Cadence teach you about Hamlet and the, process of an actor?
Cadence may have been one of the sources for that thought that memorization really isn't the biggest thing that an actor does. She read an early version of the first full manuscript and gave me a lot of thoughts about specific things that actors do that I could add in or weave in kind of subtle ways to make the world I was creating, backstage at a Shakespeare theater, as authentic as it could possibly be.
Hmm.
She also told me some things about one of the characters, she and her response to that character, and that she didn't like it when that person did this particular thing. And it was really interesting because the characters had come to feel like actual people to me,
Mm.
and almost it was almost like I had introduced my friends to someone new, and the someone new was having feedback to me about my friends. I really appreciated her honesty about that, and that of
Mhm.
every person who reviewed the book early on in its life, who said either this doesn't work or I'm having a negative response to this statement on this
Mhm.
behalf of this character or this or what
Hmm.
that person is doing. All that honest feedback, but from both Cadence and from Christine Schmidla, was really informative to me and really helped me shape characters that they're real people. They have flaws, definitely. They make bad decisions, some of them, but you understand them and maybe you can like them anyway as people.
Mhm.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, we love Cadence, so and we
Yeah.
loved her Hamlet, so
Ah, such good
um,
Hamlet.
such a good Hamlet. Can you tell us more about specifically Christine's involvement? And the Shrews know Christine. She has her own episode, so go listen to Christine's episode about Shakespeare overseas. But what was Christine's role in the whole process?
Christine read the actual first draft even before the timeline problem had come up. And she was really
TM, the
helpful.
timeline problem.
Yes. She she took ownership in a lot of delightful ways of the world I had created. And one of the things she did was she talked with me about the Blue Mountain Rose, which is the theater, the stage where all this plays out. She has experience with theaters and stages across the world, right? So she said, first of all, that I was being vague in my description of it. Was there a yard where people stood like groundlings back in
Mhm.
Shakespeare's day, or were there seats down there? And I was like,
Hmm.
oh, you caught me. I don't know for sure. I think maybe there's seats like in the Adams Memorial Theater in
Right.
Utah. And she
Mhm.
said, no, there's no seats there.
Absolutely not.
Actually,
Just
you're wrong in your own work.
just like Christine to give you an option and then tell you chose the wrong one. Christine.
It was
I mean, with a big wink because I love her so much. And I
it was
fully expect her to
brilliant.
listen to this episode.
It was brilliant. And she stuck with me and worked the problem with me to figure out how did this theater that's really like Shakespeare's Globe in London come to arrive in Flagstaff, Arizona? And what
Mhm.
does it really look like? And how many people does it hold? And what is it like to act in a space like that? She
Mhm.
knows all that.
Mhm.
I've been to Shakespeare's Globe in London, but only as an audience member and only twice. So for her to bring her really rich knowledge of that stage to my book was such a gift from her. I really appreciated that. So the Blue Mountain Rose Theater is what it is because of Christine Schmidla.
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh.
Christine.
She's great.
Yay.
I remember her, just anecdotally, my first introduction to this book was Christine was reading an early draft while she was here. But I was so early postpartum with Willa. I don't
Mm.
remember. I remember she would talk to me about it, and I was just in that like total like hormonal fog. And I was like,
Mm.
Julie's writing a book. Like, I don't know any of it. But I do remember her talking a little bit about that. And it was really smart of you to reach out both to someone who, works like as much as Christine had in so many really impressive venues with just really fantastic actors and does that kind of like textual, work that she does and is very hardcore into it. And then also to someone like Cadence, who's, on the stage, active, working. So I think you got a lot of really great perspectives in the book and it shows.
She also really was honest with me about the fact that she hated my main character of Peter, the actor. She hated the
Oh
early version of
no.
Peter. She marked up she took my PDF, she would print it out and she marked it up in her
Uh-huh.
beautiful handwriting, and then she'd
Mhm.
email me the marked up PDF. And at some point in there, it said, Peter is a jerk. And then further on, she said, now I really hate him.
Oh
And I was like,
no.
oh my goodness. And when we talked about it, he was self-centered. He was way more kind
Mm.
of negative and down than most actors she knows.
Mm.
He made some very bad decisions that she just thought he was an idiot for doing. And I love talking about that with her too, because he had become a real person in her mind. And she was the first
Mhm.
person for whom that was true, other than me.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
He's less of
interesting.
a jerk now, and I hope if Christine ever reads the actual printed final version, that she will maybe like him a little bit more.
I hope so too.
Yeah,
And
I'm sure
that
she will.
that brings me to a selfish question. I'm working right now on a play. Luckily, I don't have to write any of the dialogue for the play that I'm working on, which I know sounds a little cryptic, but it's true. But I keep thinking about how do you write dialogue? Like when you were writing the dialogue for your characters, did you kind of just write out the conversation and then go back and try to put in the voice because they have very distinct voices? Or as you were writing, did you try to create the voice of the character, make sure that they were speaking in the way that character would speak? Or kind of like, well, yeah, what was your process? Specifically, dialogue seems so baffling to me.
Mhm. I think before I ever really started into the first draft, I had spent time describing each of my characters to myself. I have long documents about their backstory and the problems that they face in this timeline of the Blue Mountain Rose book. And so I had already started to get to know them. And then as I started writing, and the more I wrote, the more comfortable I got with writing those dialogue scenes. And what
Mm.
would happen was I would sit down at my computer knowing where I was in the book and what I was going to work on that day. And then I would just let the characters start talking in my mind. And it would go very quickly. Like I would
Mhm.
almost be in some way taking dictation from, let's say, Richard and Peter working on a scene in Hamlet
Mhm.
as they're rehearsing. And I didn't have to put in the names. I knew who was talking, especially when
Yeah.
it's Richard and Peter or Richard and Kate, because Richard, who's
Hmm.
one of my other main characters, is Irish. He's a wonderful speaker. He's very emotive. He speaks in an elevated version of the English language. I could hear that man's voice in my head very easily, and
Same.
he does
Yeah.
not sound like anybody else. So I didn't have to put in like the dialogue cues that ended up in the final version.
Mm.
Peter thought for a moment, quote unquote, he said this. I didn't do that. I just put in this
Okay.
person, talking, 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 talking. And
Oh,
it was like a rush. And then after maybe
yeah.
30 minutes or 45 minutes of that rush, I could kind of sit back and, okay, are you done, guys? Are you done talking in my head in this kind of creepy, exciting way? And if they were done, then I would go back through and read it and add in
Okay.
those dialogue cues that I felt were
Right.
necessary. And then later in the process, I took a lot of the cues out in terms of Peter said this, Kate said this, Peter said this, Kate said this. The reader knows. Once
Yeah.
you've launched them
Mhm.
into two
Mhm.
pages of
Mhm.
dialogue, they know who's
Mhm.
talking. You don't have to hold their hand the whole way.
Mhm.
I'm
Yes,
Cool.
excited to
I
read your
that.
play, Dawn.
Mm.
Yeah, yes. Actually, I've been thinking about you the whole time because I'm like, when this is ready for a good copy edit, it's going to Julie
Oh, I'm
first.
excited to hear that. Yay.
But we're doing another reading of it at the end of the month. I'll invite you.
Oh, good. Thank you.
But I love hearing that. It's almost like you wrote it like a play, just with the dialogues and then adding in more of those, kind of novel characteristics to it. So that brings me to another question. Sorry, guys, I've usurped this
Yeah.
interview.
Well, wait, sorry, before you go on,
Yeah.
just the mention of it being like a play. It's funny that you say that because Julie, I was reading this at work and somebody was like, "Oh, what are you reading?" And I said, "Oh, Blue Mountain Rose. It's by a local playwright, Julie Hammonds." Oh, nope, not a playwright. It's a novel. Like, so,
Wait
yeah,
a minute. That's
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah,
actually,
yeah,
my question goes right off
Maybe
that,
Julie should write
Becki,
plays. Yeah.
which is
yeah.
I was going to ask you, did you ever think about writing it as a play, or was it always a novel in your mind?
It was always a novel in my mind, but I saw it so visually. I could see
Hmm.
the characters up on a stage. So I saw it
Mhm.
as a play, but I wrote it as a novel.
Mhm.
And I
Mhm.
feel like this is a good time to pitch that if you want to see part of it as a play, Julie is going to be at our grand opening of Beaver Street Theater, which happens to also be on Shakespeare's birthday. All these people
What?
choosing to do things on Shakespeare's
Oh.
birthday. And Becki is going to be in a little selection of a scene that Julie has created out of the book. So you can come see part of the book and you can buy your copy at the grand opening of Beaver Street Theater and chat more with Julie about it.
Woo.
But
Yeah.
I feel like I've asked so many questions. Hannah, Becki, what do you want to ask Julie?
I do want
Well,
to, can I
oh,
mention that Becki will be playing my third major character, which is Kate
Oh,
Morales?
Yeah.
So Kate is she's Richard's assistant. Richard is the executive director of the Blue Mountain Rose Theater Company, and Kate is the person who keeps the thing running.
Mhm.
mm,
And then Peter is the actor, the stranger who comes to town and upsets their world.
Who's playing Richard and who's playing Peter?
Well,
you,
let's
yeah.
see. Nick Robbie is playing Richard, and Nick
Okay.
Hmm.
is one of the original Flag Shakes
Hmm.
theater, Flag Shakes
yeah.
cast people.
Hmm.
Hmm.
And then
Matt Wyndham is playing
Oh, good. Playing
Peter.
Peter.
Hmm.
Nice.
Yeah.
wonderful.
Amazing.
It's going to be so fun. And I'm just the voice of the narrator. I will introduce them and let them bring my characters to life. And if you don't think
Oh,
Absolutely.
that's going to be an exciting moment,
Yay.
my heart is going to burst out of my chest
Pitter
right then.
patter.
Oh,
no.
yay. Well, so now talking about a little bit more about the characters, and I don't think this will give away anything, but originally I heard that this was meant to be, or maybe your first idea was that it would be a romance novel, but it's kind of deviated slightly from that. Could you tell us more about that and maybe how or why did it change?
The first scene that I wrote, this is the one that I wrote maybe back in 2017 or 2018, before I was writing a novel, like just when I was writing, just to keep myself in shape. I wrote a scene between Kate and Peter. And it was a fairly romantic, kind of a meet cute, but there's tension and there's a lot of emotion in the room, and there's kind of a they have kind of a they have kind of a relationship like Beatrice and Benedict in Much Ado
Mm.
About Nothing, kind of a
The
vibe
will
going
they,
Yeah.
on.
won't they?
Yes, will they,
Yeah.
Yeah.
won't they? And I wrote
Hmm.
this whole scene, and it's from that scene made me think this could be a romance novel. These people have energy together. Maybe I could do this. Maybe I could pull off like a nice little romance novel set in a Shakespeare theater.
Hmm.
But you know what? life sometimes takes a turn, and real life is not like the romance novels. And I am kind of a serious person at heart, and it turned out that I didn't want to write a romance novel.
Hmm.
I actually wanted to write a novel in which people are confronting the big, hard challenges of life and learning how to connect with each other and learning how to get through things together and learning how great art like Shakespeare's plays can help them communicate with each other and learn about themselves and make it through the day. So I like romance novels. Don't get me wrong. I read them, but I'm not a great writer of them.
Hmm.
And when I realized that, I thought, well, what am I capable of doing? Now is the time to find out. So it's more of a serious novel. It's for people who've been through some stuff in life.
Yeah.
And I think it turns out to be kind of encouraging and uplifting, but it's not always happy. Like not every chapter is like, ooh, fun.
Yay, grief. Yeah, absolutely. Um, well, I would say that my favorite part about the novel was kind of what you were just saying, like the moments that it was more serious. And the reason I actually kind of loved those moments is because like I know sort of the Easter eggs, I know like the creation of this novel, like I know you, your story, and etc. I know obviously the story of Flag Shakes. And so like I could literally like see moments where I'm like, this reminds me of something this person has gone through. This reminds me of something this person has gone through. And like, obviously, the story of Hamlet really deals with grief and so many other things. Like this book handles the idea of running a theater company and how hard that is, and the idea of leaving a company, starting a company, not having enough money, wanting the gig, not getting the gig. Like it's so many different moments that I'm like, oh, like she probably got that from Cadence, or oh, that sounds a lot like my experience, or oh, I know Julie's gone through that. So it was really interesting to like see the Easter eggs. But that's, a privilege I have reading the book, obviously, because I know you and I know the company so well. But what I wanted to connect to that anecdote was like all of the fun Easter eggs. I feel like that is especially what's extra fun about this book. If you run in the Shakespeare circles, like, the Shakespeare Theater Association people, like, there are so many Easter eggs in here. Like, it was so lovely to see. A version of Fred Adams, come out of the page where like even you talking about his suits, I was like, oh my gosh, the man, the myth, the legend. Like that man knew how to dress. It's just like there's just all these moments that I was like, oh, and it made me like, miss living in Utah, miss the Utah Shakespeare Festival, like miss Fred. I didn't know Fred well, but it's just all these moments where it's like, oh, and I also caught like the Condell reference, like, from, back in the early days of the folio and stuff. And anyway, are there like some favorite Easter eggs, that you want to point out that were like names or references or, like I could see a lot of like amalgamations of names and stuff that was, oh, it's from this person and this person meets this festival. Like, so anyway, what were some of your favorite Easter eggs that you planted, or do you not want to tell us about them?
Oh, I'm happy to mention a couple. And you did find one that Adam Condell is the founder of the Blue Mountain Rose Theater Company, and he founded it back in the 1940s. But he really is an homage to Fred Adams at the Utah Shakespeare Festival. I
Hmm.
got to meet Fred in probably 2016, I'm guessing. He maybe a little bit later, but he had directed The Taming of the Shrew that year and
Hmm.
did a talk in the Grove, and I went to the talk. And he was so delightful, such a gentleman, so well put together,
Hmm.
so well spoken at that ungodly early hour of the morning, whatever it was. And such a delightful presence that I couldn't not honor him. I mean, I
Yeah.
really enjoy going to Utah, and they've meant a lot to me in terms of what they do in terms of audience education. I've learned a lot from them.
Hmm.
There was, I would say, one of the most fun parts of the book and one of the parts that was the most treacherous for me as the writer was finding out the history of sort of Shakespearean acting in
Mm,
Britain and America. All these wonderful actors that are still out there working today. Maybe they're in their 70s or 80s, but they would have been young actors around the time that Richard was a young actor.
Mhm.
And my idea was that Richard came over from Britain. He came to work at the Blue Mountain Rose Theater Company, and he brought a lot of his friends. Like they would come over
mm,
and just bring their company and act with
mhm.
him. And these are people that we definitely still know today. And it was just really fun to imagine that like Derek Jacobi had acted here in Flagstaff, and he used to have breakfast down at our local cafe, and people would ask for his
Aw.
autograph, and he would very kindly sign it as he was eating his eggs. Um, I loved creating that imaginary world. It was very,
Hmm.
very fun. And the danger of it, though, was that the more I researched, the more I wanted to research. Like I
Mm.
could just spend days finding out, who were the most wonderful actors who were working in Britain in the 1960s when the National Theater was founded, and maybe how can I bring them across the pond to act in Flagstaff? That, I could still be researching that, honestly. But it was so fun.
Yeah, that's amazing. That was just so fun to, I just loved being like, oh my gosh, I know what that's from. Things like that. Like even small mo like, and this is maybe not an Easter egg, but this is definitely something that I feel like you also really got right was like those small moments. Like there was a moment where you described how and when actors eat their meals. And I was like, oh my gosh, someone has finally like figured this out. Because when we have these weird schedules, we eat a meal at like midnight, but then we don't eat another meal until like 2 p.m. It's like just super strange, you know? And so it's just like these little moments that you got right that I was like, oh yeah, we totally do that. Or like, like how each of us have a way that we stay sane, like while we're in long runs, like Peter goes for runs and like we each have our thing that we do. Or like you like mentioned like on show days he was doing yoga or like on his like final dress rehearsal day like he woke up and did his yoga and like looked at his lines and anyway it was like this was very accurate and I just loved those Easter eggs too where it's like oh yeah this is all absolutely what we do and it was just interesting seeing it you know in on paper rather than just in my brain.
Some of that came from you, Hannah, I'm pretty sure. And also, I
Maybe it
think
did.
when you took us up to Utah on that trip, you introduced us to Marco Antonio
Mm,
Vega, your friend who's an
yeah.
actor there, who very kindly had dinner with us and talked with us
Hmm.
about an actor's process. And oh, I picked his brain. I don't know if he got a few
That's
bites in. I hope he did, but I made him talk.
amazing.
That's so
That's sweet.
lovely. So the big thing for me, Julie, is that this is of course called Blue Mountain Rose. Do you want to talk about where you got the Mountain Rose part of the title from?
Sure.
The name of the theater?
Well, so the Rose was one of the original theaters in London that Shakespeare's company would have acted in back in 1598 or something like that, 1604. And then working with the Flagstaff Shakespeare Festival, I was on the board when we started talking about having our own outdoor performance space in Flagstaff. And whose ever idea this was, but the idea was to name it the Mountain Rose. So, an homage to Shakespeare's time and the theaters of his day, but also an homage to our amazing and beautiful San Francisco peaks, the Mountain Rose. When it came time to name the theater company in my novel, that made my work really easy. I was going to steal the idea of Mountain
Yeah.
Rose, and then I wanted one more word, and I really honestly sort of don't know why, but I wanted a three-word title instead of a two-word title.
Hmm.
So I started casting around for what kind of a mountain rose it might be. And I tried pink and I tried green and I tried black. Maybe it's a black mountain rose, but blue was the right color for it
Yeah.
because blue has a feeling of grief, but
Hmm.
also blue sky. And
Hmm.
that just felt right. And that way, my theater company and my imagination, the one that I was creating in my novel, could be slightly different from the Flag Shakes idea, but definitely still adjacent to it. We're parallel worlds here.
Well, and I think it's really lovely because this is still certainly a dream of Flag Shakes, and you having written a novel about it has really inspired me to look back at all of and we did so much work on this project. It all happened, sort of pre-COVID. And now that we're finally coming out of that and things are changing so rapidly, it's just funny how not only the novel, but there's so many times the Mountain Rose Project has come up in the last couple of months. And I'm going, we got to start talking about this thing again
To
and
me, I
build
would
it.
say that it's really amazing to me that the excellent work that Flag Shakes does. And I've had so many wonderful moments of theater as an audience member watching the Flag Shakes performers do what they do underneath a tent in a monsoon rainstorm. But wouldn't it be fabulous if we had our own outdoor Elizabethan
Yeah.
performance space that really paid homage to Shakespeare and his time and really allowed us to do original staging practices
Mhm.
and gave us that environment here on the side of our beautiful mountain in our ponderosa pine forest beneath the San Francisco peaks.
Yeah,
Mm.
I
Oh,
agree.
yeah.
So, Julie, where can everyone find your book? How can they pre-order Blue Mountain Rose?
Right. So April 23rd is the national on sale date, but the book is
Okay,
available for pre-order everywhere now.
great.
It's been available from my publishing company, Solstice Publishing, for a couple of months now. We have the books in stock, but now people anywhere and everywhere could go on Barnes and Noble, Books a
Mm.
Million, indiebound.org, or the big one, Amazon, and
Mhm.
Yeah.
pre-order it. And it's
Yeah.
also available for pre-order as an ebook. So if that's a person's preferred way of reading, it's available that way. And then those orders will be fulfilled April 23rd. So still, if people want an order filled now, they should buy it from Solstice Publishing, which is, well, the book itself has a website, which is bluemountainrose.com.
Yay. And
Nice.
how can people find you and or Solstice?
Hmm. Well, I and or Solstice exist on Facebook. So I'm
Nice.
Julie Hammonds, and it's Solstice Publishing, which is spelled slightly differently. It's Soulstice Publishing. And there you can find, I suppose, the other 13 books we've published, many of
Mhm.
which have a local Flagstaff flavor to them, and
Mhm.
a few of which are running books, because as Dawn mentioned, I'm a runner and I like editing running books.
Running in Flagstaff.
Yeah.
Running Flagstaff and Shakespeare. That's Julie Hammonds.
To a
Um,
T.
That's amazing.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Julie. And I just want to remind everyone that they can also get it in person, signed by the author, on April 23rd at Beaver Street Theater if they get tickets to the grand opening, which is almost sold out.
I was
So
gonna say it's almost
Whoop.
if you're
gone.
coming, get your tickets.
Absolutely.
But I'll tell you what, if you didn't get tickets and you want to sneak in for a copy of Blue Mountain Rose, I will I will let you come in and buy a book from Julie. We're also going to have it for sale at the
Oh,
in the lobby at Beaver Street Theater. So anytime you come to a Flag Shake show, you can grab your copy of Blue Mountain Rose. Julie, I am so inspired. It's just amazing. I don't know if all of our listeners will realize, but it is amazing to take your dream from concept to reality in 2 years, especially when that dream is writing a novel. People spend decades doing this very same thing. So absolutely amazing. And that it's also really well written. I think that, one of the things about being an amazing reader is that you absorb all of that and you have this amazing style as a writer. So thank you so much for coming on Shrews.
Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you for
Yes,
giving me
thank
all
you.
that inspiration, Flag Shakes, and you lovely shrews.
Aw, thank you. I know I have so many more questions and things we could chat about, but I think what I just want to say is I really enjoyed it. It was an honor to, see my own Easter eggs in there. Um, my name and my last name and all those things. So that was really very sweet. And it was meant a lot to me. And I really enjoyed the book, wholeheartedly recommend it. And yeah, if people have questions of how to get the book or want to get connected to Julie, obviously like send us a message or anything. But we just really appreciate that, like the shrew flag shakes dumb fandom, I don't know, whatever, is expanding, you know? Like, yeah, Flag Shakes is just leaving its mark on the world, and this is one of those ways, and it's just an honor
Yes, it
that
is.
you did that for us. It's very sweet of you.
Thank you so much, Hannah.
All right, anything else, my gals?
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Amazing. All right. Well, thanks for listening to this month's episode of Untamed Shrews. I'm Hannah.
And I'm Becki. Join us for our next episode in May. Follow Untamed Shrews on our Instagram at Untamed Shrews Podcast and on the Flag Shakes website. All episodes of Untamed Shrews can be found wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on sunsounds.org.
Please subscribe to the podcast, leave us a review, put us in your Instagram stories, donate at flagshakes.org/donate, become a podcast sponsor, and buy Shrew Crew merch. Help support the Shrew Crew.
This episode of Untamed Shrews, starring Hannah Johnson, Dawn Tucker, Becki Zaritsky, and Julie Hammonds. Show art by Calliope Luedeker. Podcast theme song by Cadence Lamb. Podcast produced and edited by Hannah Johnson and presented by Flagstaff Shakespeare Festival.
Bye,
Bye.
guys.